You notice that all of the pictures of your great-grandparents had perfect skin? I noticed this as well and did deep dive research on.
No, you didn't, sir, because if you do just one quick Google search, you can find the real answer to this question, and that's the kind of lie that, as someone who studied art for years in college, it makes me sick to my stomach that you're pushing this false, unattainable beauty standard still. But clearly there are people who actually want to learn about the history of editing in Photoshop throughout the years. If you haven't seen that guy's video, he goes on to claim that the reason they had great skin was because they used this special soap that didn't have toxins and all this conspiracy stuff. And he uses all these fear tactics to try and convince you to buy his soap and convince you that your skin could look like that if you use that soap. But it can't, because guess what? Photoshop has been around for hundreds of years. And that's actually how they made all of the skin in those photos look so flawless, not from your soap. So we know that way back in the day with paintings, you could essentially paint whatever you want, so people would paint Photoshop on, or essentially tell the painters to make them look different. So that would have been the earliest form, but these are actual photos, and I know you're asking yourself, how do you Photoshop a photo from like 1890 whatever, before computers were invented? So the answer for the earliest ones was just that there was a lower quality, so everything kind of had this hazy glow to it. But then as quality started to get better with the dry plate process, they're like, we don't want better quality, we want to look perfect. So as you can kind of see here between the two photos, they would use pencils and other things like etching knives to kind of remove on the negatives, the spots, so that it would all come up blurry and hazy, which is what actually created the silky smooth effect of the skin, not these soaps he's trying to sell you. But it went beyond just blemishes and whatnot. They would actually Photoshop the shape of faces, like people do with Photoshop now, to make people appear skinnier, or sometimes they would etch on entire pieces of clothing, because remember, back then people were like not used to the easy technology, so they could just like draw on a whole shirt. Or a lot of times, if you recognize this hazy sort of style, that's because they would just take the time to etch out all of the surroundings so it would become a solo portrait. So no, Photoshop and photo editing is not a new thing. People have wanted to change their appearance since the dawn of time, and it's creating a really toxic narrative to lie and pretend like that was ever at any point historically attainable. Shame on you, sir.